and today I'm looking at 2 Corinthians chapter 7, starting in verse 8. For even if that letter of mine made you sad, I am not sorry I wrote it. I could have been sorry for when I saw that it made you sad for a while, but now I am happy. Not because I made you sad, but because your sadness made you change your ways. That sadness was used by God, and so we caused you no harm. For the sadness that is used by God brings a change of heart that leads to salvation, and there is no regret in that. But sadness that is merely human causes death. See what God did with the sadness of yours? How earnest it has made you, how eager to prove your innocence. Such indignation, such alarm, such feelings, such devotion, such readiness to punish wrongdoing. You have shown yourselves to be without fault in the whole matter. So even though I wrote that letter, it was not because of the one who did wrong or the one who was wronged. Instead, I wrote it to make it plain to you in God's sight how deep your devotion to us really is. You guys have heard me say it before, but one of the reasons that I love the Bible is the fact that it's just really true and honest and real human beings talking about real life with God. Paul is absolutely no exception to that, because in this letter, he pretty much goes, yep, sorry, not sorry. I wrote you a letter and it made you really sad. I'm not that broken up about it, though. Now, most of us will think that in our head, but most of us won't actually say it to a person, and Paul writes it down. Because this is the second letter to Corinth, and he's written another letter that he really just full on was like, yeah, y'all are messing up. And here's how. And here's what you should be doing, and here's why. This is the God who's called you, and this is what he's asking of you. So he's written this letter to them, and he goes, oh, it made you sad, but I'm not really that broken up about it. Why? Because it made you better. Now, when we're looking at talking to friends, family, and situations that have to do with like behavior, that's actually kind of a rough call. Because when do you bring it up? How do you bring it up? What do you even want to say to them that goes, oh, they might not receive it, or they might not talk to me again? How do I deal with this situation? Looking at them. Because truthfully, there's sometimes you actually have to call it out. There is scripture in the Bible that talks about Jesus being full of grace and truth, meaning he was 100% grace and 100% truth. Now, most of us tend to lean one way or the other. I tend to lean towards truth, going, this is the right thing to do, so that's what we should do. However, that means I personally have to be super conscious of how I'm speaking. Because whether it's right or wrong, that's somebody that Christ died for, and I need to treat them that way. And sometimes I actually just have to check myself going, yeah, it might not be right, but is it something you really need to bring up? Like in the grand scheme of life, does it really matter if they do that absolutely right now? That's a hard call for me. Now, some of us operate where we lean towards grace more. And so you go, oh, it's okay. I don't want to hurt their feelings. But sometimes if we leave people in a place of brokenness, that's not love. If you're watching them do destructive behavior and you let them keep going, that's not love. And Jesus was our example at how to handle this, being 100% full of grace and 100% full of truth, and that he would deal with sin, but in a place of love every time. So how do we do this on a day-to-day basis? Paul writes this letter and goes, I actually made you sad. My bad, but not really. Because God made it better for you. Now that's got to be the core of how we bring up these conversations going. Is it us dealing with persons because we're going, you're wrong, you need to fix yourself? Or are we talking to them going, I want you to be better? In this letter, Paul looks at them and he says, verse 9, But now I am happy, not because I made you sad, but because your sadness made you change your ways. That sadness was used by God, and so he caused you no harm. I wasn't trying to hurt you. And that's got to be our first place that we start from every time. I'm not trying to hurt you. I just want you to be better. I love you. Then it goes on in verse 11, and he says, see what God did with the sadness of yours, how earnest it made you, how eager to prove your innocence, such indignation, such alarm, such feelings, such devotion, such readiness to punish wrongdoing. You have shown yourselves to be without fault in the whole matter. At the end of the day, it's made you better. That's always got to be our goal, not just fixing behavior, not that this is what's right and we got to do it. I love you and I want you to be better. Then it goes on in verse 12 and it says, so even though I wrote that letter, it was not because of the one who did wrong or the one who was wrong. Instead, I wrote it to make it plain to you in God's sight how deep your devotion to us really is. Paul talks to the church of Corinth and he goes, actually, the reason I wrote that letter is because I wanted you to be the person that I always thought you were. I wanted you to see the person that I see you as. That's how God sees us. He sees us in a light of Jesus Christ's blood. He goes, I see you like my son. And so every day is about getting us to be like his son. If we approach these like hard conversations like that going, I already see you running that business. I already see you leading your family. I already see you doing those things. I'm just bringing this up because I love you and I feel like it'll help you get to that place that I already see, because I want you to see you like I see you. Those conversations will always be easier to have. Remember, we love because we were first loved. And so if we have always remembered that Jesus Christ sees us in the sight of who he is, then we can always love each other the same way. Love you.